Another edition of Carol Owns It, except this time it's not just Carol who owns it, it's Bob who owns it. Because I'm going to read an essay by Bob, my friend Bob, who didn't have a video camera. So I'm doing this for him because we both felt it was very important to get this message out right now. While this war president is continuing to bomb Libya without the permission of Congress, according to the War Powers Act. Because I've been watching video tonight from people across the world who think that Americans, United States citizens, don't know what's going on. Well, American citizens do know what's going on. And Bob has written an essay about how American citizens have been lied to and propagandized and brainwashed for decades in this country by the government with the facilitation of the media. This is what Bob has to say about this, and you decide from what Bob says whether Americans know what's going on. And if they appear not to know, why that is. Reader, on December 1st, 2005, under the Freedom of Information Act, through the release of classified documents related to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was the catalyst that Congress accepted to allow President Lyndon Johnson to take this country to war against the Vietnamese people, Americans learned for the first time that the incident cited, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, did not happen. Did not happen. And he's attached a video, linked a video. Robert McNamara admits Gulf of Tonkin attack did not happen. I'll attach that to this video. 58,000 Americans, men and women, paid with their lives for an aggressive act against this country, Vietnam, or against this country, that did not happen. Over 2 million Vietnamese people lost their lives. And of that 2 million, no more than 220,000 were combatants, North Vietnamese Army or Viet Cong. You do the math as to how many innocent Vietnamese we slaughtered for a lie. The number of innocent Arabs, children, families, elderly that we have murdered over this last decade is countless. Countless. Because our government has chosen to hide this truth from us. Do we have to wait another 40 more years to find out? In this escalation of wars, there are 6 that we are now engaged in: Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Libya, Yemen, and the ever illusory war on terror, and I add not to mention the war on drugs, is about our need for their oil, which belongs to them, which creates jobs for their people so that they can feed and clothe their families, have a roof over their head, send their children to be educated in the hopes of a better future, etc., etc. Sound familiar? It's what most Americans strive for. No different. Background information, please retain. 75% of the NATO budget comes from the U.S. President Barack Obama took us once again to war in the country of Libya, telling us, prepare yourself once again, my easily hoodwinked fellow citizens, that we were only going to establish a no-fly zone to protect the opposition forces, and that the U.S. role was only that of contributing intelligence and logistical support to NATO. NATO being 75% funded, controlled, bought, and paid for by the good old US of A. Are any cerebral synapses making connections yet in our collective consciousness? So many progressives and liberals found it so easy to see through the deception and lies of the Cheney-Bush cabal. But no red flags rise up apparently when this smiling, affably laughing it off, careful weigher of his words, think deep and measured, father of 2 beautiful daughters and husband to a gracious, intelligent wife, deceives once again the American public with purposeful, considered deception. For because now that we are once again entrenched in yet another unwinnable war, we have this insane responsibility that comes with being the moral superior power in the world that can't turn its back and walk away from a Libyan people who yearn for their own democracy. Yet we do so in Bahrain, Yemen, Syria, Burma, and Palestine, to name only a few. And let's remember that this smoothly polished president was for Mubarak before he was against him, or has easily hoodwinked become an addiction to the comatose and comfort seekers among us. Or is it that once in, we have the capacity then to control the resource, oil, the word of which we dare not speak in public, but rather drape our motives in the flowery poetry of freedom, democracy, justice. And since our elected representatives got away with it before when they told us that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, was involved in the 9/11 attack, and was only months away from developing a nuclear bomb which we could not wait for it to appear in the form of a mushroom cloud, and the American public in pure Pavlovian fear contrived instinctual behavior, bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Well, why not pitch them another curve, screwball, or whatever, for they are easily led, these carefully trained, unquestioning, authoritarian followers, us. What is it about the American people that are so willing to sell the truth out for loyalty to one president or one party or one blind ideology, and to not see that though they vehemently and angrily criticize the former adolescent caricature of a president for his sinking us into a quagmire of war and economic depression, cannot see that this latest image creation of public relation firms in New York and Washington, Barack Obama, has already surpassed his predecessor in virulent attacks on innocent civilians, collateral damage being the necessary but unfortunate result of war, as long as it is someone else's family or loved ones we are talking about, and that they don't exactly look like the majority of us. He has sunk us yet deeper into more wars, rewarded the wealthy in this country with tax cuts for destroying our economy, but doesn't lift a finger to help the American middle class, working people, from losing their homes, or create jobs by cutting out the practice of outsourcing jobs overseas, or even preventing the wealthy from stuffing their ill-gotten loot in offshore accounts for which they do not have to pay taxes to this country even though they partake in a much larger capacity in the commonwealth of this country. But for the Pelosi's and Boners, it is only a game of politics. Who can control the purse strings of the Treasury through the nurturing of the moneyed elite in separating their dollars from their soiled, grasping little hands without upsetting them too much? Let's face it, the plutocracy is way ahead on the scoreboard of this little game. And as regards the game of foreign policy, i.e. wars, the game is never to look the weaker by doing the morally correct thing of ending these wars, because the other side will jump all over you and start their very effective fear-mongering again with the help of their corporate, enabling media sycophants, Fox in the henhouse, news et al. So let me end this and appeal to the deepest part of our collective identity as a nation built on values of democracy, respect for human life and dignity, equality, and justice. Which one of you now hearing this would answer my question any differently than I would? If a war were begun that was based on lies, deceptions, and misstatements, and so much destruction was done to this country because of it, and not only to this country, but the entire world and the planet, would you not step forward and scream out, as the candidate Obama once did, enough? And is there not any, even among those of you who function on the level of illusion, denial, or naivete, who really thinks Obama does not know these truths about how these wars started and the price in lives and environmental destruction it has wreaked upon the planet? For undoubtedly he does, and yet does nothing more than continue the same tailspin of human hubris and political cowardice down the drain pipe of history. Tell me, my fellow Americans, am I the only one hearing that giant sucking sound of a once great and powerful nation mindlessly churning itself downward through the morass of drowning values amid other great civilizations that lost their souls? Signed, Bob.